In today's video, we're diving into Rangers have just blocked a multi-million move for Nicolas Raskin. He's turned down Besiktas, but the real twist, he's holding out for Europe's elite. Meanwhile, John Souta's injury looked like a disaster, but there's been a shock update that could change everything ahead of Europe. And Rangers have just lost Thomas Kavankara to Celtic after agreeing personal terms. Disaster in the transfer race, all while Romain Mundle slips through our fingers and Danny Rohl's European record remains winless. You're going to want to see every bit of this. It's all kicking off at Ibrox. It's heating up in the January window, and Rangers are slap bang in the middle of the rumour mill. Again, let's start with Kieran Bowie. Now, you might have heard the noise. Kieran Bowie, formerly of Fulham, now lighting it up at Hibs, is the name on everyone's lips. 8 goals in 27 appearances, international call-ups, and performances that have got Europe sniffing around. Italy, Germany, Belgium, and even Wolves from down south, all reportedly preparing those so-called big money bids. And what about Rangers? There's interest, but it's no secret that funds need to be freed up first. Hibs are saying they'll only sell if someone offers top dollar, and Bowie's tied down till 2028. Meanwhile, Findlay Curtis is off to Kilmarnock. Lyle Cameron's heading to Aberdeen, and there's talk Joe Rothwell could be shipped out to balance the books. Here's the twist. Rangers wanted him in the summer, but it's sounding more and more like the lad's heading abroad, or worse, across the city. And that leads to the real question. If Hibs are genuinely considering a sale, would you be angrier at them for doing business with Celtic or at us for not going all in to keep Bowie away from them? Now the striker search continues. Despite already landing Andreas Skov Olsen on loan, Rangers are still desperate to bring in a proper number 9 before the window shuts on the 2nd of February. Danny Rohl wants more firepower, and it's no wonder. He's not placing much trust in Danilo these days, is he? Youssef Shamiti, though, is starting to look the part. You've seen it yourself. 2 massive goals in the old firm, and finally showing that sharpness we hoped for when he arrived. And Bojan Miovski banged in a hat trick against Annan Athletic in the Cup like it was a training session. But Rohl knows he's one injury away from crisis. So here's what I want to know. With Chamiti and Miovski starting to fire, do we actually need another striker? Or is Rohl just afraid to put real trust in the lads he's already got? It's another door swinging open at Ibrox, and this time it's Kieran Dowell heading out, bound for Hull City in the English Championship. Now listen, Dowell was one of those signings brought in under the Michael Beale circus, but let's be honest, it never really worked out, did it? Injuries early on, never nailed down a proper run, and in the end, he became little more than a name on the bench. Rohl's barely looked at him, and it's been no secret he's surplus to requirements. He'll go on loan now, but the deal's already lined up for him to sign permanently in the summer. If Hull get themselves promoted to the Premier League, you've got to say it's not a bad move for him. But it says plenty about where Rangers are trying to go under Rohl. Out with the old and no room for passengers. Rohl himself even said it. Some players just need minutes, but not all those minutes are going to come at Ibrox, especially not when you're chasing a title and fighting on multiple fronts with a squad barely big enough to fill a bench on European nights. And fair play to Dowell. He got one final run out against Annan Athletic and even scored. Signed off with a goal, and now he's off to try again down south. But here's the thing that stings a bit. With Dowell leaving, Lyle Cameron already loaned out and the squad down to the bare bones in Europe, are we cutting too deep, or is Danny Rohl right to rip this all up now and rebuild with his own players, no matter the short-term risk? Now here's one for you. Nicolas Raskin, a player many rate highly and plenty more, just can't seem to figure out, has turned down a move away from Ibrox. Besiktas, of all clubs, have been pestering him with what's being called various attempts to drag him off to Turkey, but the Belgians had none of it. The answer was a flat no, and you know what? Fair play to him. He's made it crystal clear. He's not swapping Ibrox for the Super League. If he's leaving Rangers, he wants one of Europe's big five. We're talking Premier League, Serie A, Bundesliga, that level. Not Istanbul on a Thursday night in front of a half-full stadium with lads playing samba music in the corner. Raskin's happy to stick around until summer if nothing proper comes up. Says he's not in a rush. And listen, say what you want about his form, but that attitude, it's actually quite refreshing. He's not pushing for an exit just to cash a bigger check. But here's where it gets juicy. Rangers have slapped a price tag on him between 18 and 20 million pounds. That's the starting point before we even entertain a conversation. And don't forget, there's still cash to go back to Standard Liège thanks to a sell-on clause. Rohl rates him, and clearly the club know his worth. But interest is growing. Spurs, Crystal Palace, clubs in Germany and Italy, they're all watching. And the moment someone coughs up the cash, this becomes very real. So if a bid lands on the table worth 20 million pounds, do you take it now and reinvest, or hold your ground and risk losing him for less in the summer? Let's take a minute and talk about Danny Rohl's reign at Ibrox, because the numbers don't lie and they paint a picture that's complicated. 20 matches in charge, 12 wins, 3 draws, 5 defeats. Not bad on the face of it, especially when you remember where we were when he walked through the doors, when he, sitting 8th in the table, the season in free fall, Russell Martin already sent packing. Folk forget how bad it really was. Players collapsing in Falkirk, police escorting the manager out like he'd robbed the club. Rohl didn't just steady the ship, he's turned it around. Rangers are back in a title race. That alone deserves some credit. But, and it's a big but, there's still a huge elephant in the room. No wins in Europe, not one. Losses to Roma, Bran, Ferencváros, and now a massive test coming up against Ludogorets. And to make it harder, Rohl's going into it without John Souttar, who's picked up an injury. Though thankfully, it's not as bad as feared. The word is he'll be back by Monday, but still, no Souttar for Dundee this weekend, and no certainty he'll be ready for Porto away next week. On the plus side, the squad's had a decent shake-up in January. Andreas Skov Olsen, Tochi Chukwani, Tua Romans, all brought in, but then there's the transfer market frustrations too. Rangers were chasing Romain Mundle, and it looked promising until Sunderland pulled the plug. They want to keep him unless they get new signings of their own, and suddenly that deal's as dead as the Kavan Kara move, who's now apparently off to Celtic. And to top it off, we're looking at Elliot Watt from Motherwell. The same lad who scored against Celtic. But even that's looking like a summer job. So here's your question. If Rohl ends this season with no silverware and no progress in Europe, but a better league finish, is that enough to say he's taken Rangers forward? Or are we just settling for a smoother version of failure? That's the video for today. Make sure you leave a like to show the strength of our Rangers here on YouTube, and drop a comment letting me know what you thought.